right. So I'm your official moderator for today, I guess. So we are interviewing the one and only tech master, Barry. How you doing, Barry?
Man, I am good. I am good. Just excited to be sharing some of the technology that I'm using.
Nice.
And how I've been able to replace myself over and over and over.
Right.
So
I think that brings up a good point. So let's talk a little bit about like using technology. Ultimately, this is kind of a buzzword, and I think there's some important distinctions to be made for everyone that's kind of watching, because it's easy to get, shiny object syndrome. At the end of the day, how do you decide what technology you're trying to use, and what is the goal or the outcome of the technology that you're trying to use? In other words, is it simply to give you scale and efficiency or anything like that? Or, is there something more specific that you're trying to do when you choose your tech tools, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that a common mistake of agents buying third-party software is the hope is it's going to do a better job than they are. And,
right.
At the end of the day, that's just not the case. We're market experts. We understand local verbiage and restaurants and things like that. And robots, just as good as they are, they just can't do that. And so I felt like what was a negative, like in high school, the reason why I typically got bad grades ended up being the impetus to why I became such an avid technology buff when it came to my business, was because I really, I don't have a good memory. I get distracted easily. I don't like working that hard. There's just a long list of reasons why I shouldn't be successful. And so I did like being able to pay my mortgage in it. So I was forced into leveraging technology to support my personal handicaps. And some people are good at everything. And so that's a whole different discussion. But I would say really technology should be used to improve efficiency and fill gaps where, where they lack, basically.
Okay. And do you think that sometimes, like you said, people will buy a kind of technology hoping that it's just going to do it all for them without putting the work into the technology? Is this something that you see, obviously with some of your experience with Ylopo and kind of coaching some people on that side of things?
Yeah.
I think the expectations, there's a disparate expectation between the technology that you're buying and what you hope it's going to do.
I think that's spot on, Jesse. Honestly, I'm one of the biggest real estate techie nerds I know. Not more than you, just saying. But seriously though, and I just want everybody to know, I hate setting it up. I don't like setting it up. It's a means to an end. And remember, I'm the guy with the bad memory, so I know if I schedule an appointment to do it, if I can just grind through it and work hard, once it's done, there'll be a little bit of maintenance here and there, but then the rest, they say, is history.
Right. The analogy I like to use, it's kind of like a gym membership, right? You want the outcome, you want the hot physique or whatever, but people will buy a gym membership and then either they don't take the time, maybe they use one machine, but they don't use all of the machines.
Right.
So they get some results, but the results could be dramatically better, if they took the time to really apply to learn how to use the machines right at the gym. So if you kind of think of the analogy to technology is a tool, and you've got to learn how to really use the tool to really extract the full value of it. And I think this is why sometimes, some people get discouraged with some of the stuff, because they'll, press the button, set up an account, spend 15 minutes and go, okay, it should work. And, and don't invest more time to really, learn how to leverage it at its maximum capacity.
Yeah.
And so what happens, then they look for easy solutions of another technology that I think can maybe fill in the gap, versus if they just, really went deep on the tools that they had, they may have learned that, the stuff that I already had could do those things.
Well, yeah, and you look at our relationship. So I met you first as a call action customer, right? And, what I would end up doing is literally putting on headphones, closing my office door. I don't want to hear anybody. I don't want to be distracted. And I would just focus on the tech. And the decision, so to use call action as an example, the decision to integrate that into my business, what was it now, 3 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
That decision and that work, I'm still benefiting from.
Right.
Like today, the videos that I uploaded still like are working, and the messaging that I wrote. And so it's an investment like a stock, and the dividends just keep paying off over time.
Right.
And so before we get into like this, that, and the other, those of you that are listening right now, I would tell you that you need to break apart every week a little bit of time to just do like 3 things or 1 thing, and just week after week. It got to the point now where so much of my day-to-day was streamlined that I ended up being able to get, and now I'm hired by Ylopo, now I'm working for them, but I'm still running my team. So it's just leverage. You just keep doing it. So
right. Yeah, and there's a big difference between technology that is, in a roundabout way, giving you scale to create free time through efficiency versus, trying to be you directly. Because at the end of the day, it's still a people business, I think, for most people. And for you, you're distributing it to your teams, but there's still the goal of all of the technology is to really just facilitate those conversations at the end of the day and make those people connect and have those conversations. Right. And it's just to take away most of the tedium that we see kind of upstream to get to those kind of conversations. So I think this would be a good time for kind of a transition here. So let's kind of start off at the top. How did how should someone who's thinking about buying technology, should they kind of take a snapshot of their entire business and start looking at where do I have inefficiencies at my business? And then how do I replace those inefficiencies with some technology? And maybe you could give us an example of like what that entire stack looks like for you, basically.
Yeah, so I would say what I would do, the easiest way of finding out what you should focus on is where are you screwing up, or where are you stressed out? You have either of those, and sometimes they're the exact same thing. What stresses you out at all is also what you're doing wrong. Right. And so I would start with the problem, like what is it that keeps me up at night? What is it that I find myself failing in? What's preventing me from wanting to go prospect? And then start there, and then see if you can find ways to start just to make it a little bit easier. And so an example of that is transaction management. Okay, like, my gosh, I've got a list of like 30 things to do on every file. And so being a guy who is people-focused, forgets what to do, I wanted to find a solution. So then you look for all these popular transaction management platforms, Dotloop, SkySlope, and all of them at their core, they do fundamentally what you ask them to, but at the same time, like, there's still some work there.
Right.
And so I decided to try to come up with a way to kind of flip it on its head a little bit. So in order to do that, everybody, if you know me well, I love Zapier. It gives you the ability to be like a programmer without being able to have to learn how to program. It connects companies that otherwise wouldn't be connected. And what I did was, for myself and the agents on my team, I just created a simple ratified contract form using JotForm. So I just, what are the things my transaction manager needs to know? Instead of having them write it down on a piece of paper, they just filled out an online form that I created. So then version 1 sent an email to our transaction manager and said, here's the new file. Then I got to thinking, I was like, man, I got all this data. Why don't I put some of it into spreadsheets? Why don't I put it into, a to-do list somewhere, whether it's project management software, there's so many different to-do programs. And so then, like, over time, it keeps iterating. And now when my agents ratify a contract, there's probably, 70 or 80 automated steps that take place throughout the entire transaction. And it all started with, oh my gosh, my agents keep forgetting to do da 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 da, or
Right.
oh my gosh, I forgot to turn in my EMD check or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started with a problem, and then I was like, how can I try to solve that problem effortlessly and on the cheap? And that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah. So initially you had, maybe it took you 15, 20, 30 hours to kind of figure out, the problem, break it down, program, Zapier to get it fixed up, kind of working. But what I'm hearing you basically say is that, at the end of the day, you automated maybe 60 or 70 or 80 tasks. And even if those just took, a couple minutes a piece, and you multiply that times your, 300 transactions a year you're doing, all of a sudden we're talking hundreds of hours, saved basically through automation by making kind of that initial investment of really going deep and trying to solve the problem.
Exactly. And, and you can apply, like, I know some of you are watching and you're like, yeah, Zapier, I'm already overwhelmed. But like, just hear me out. Like, filling out jot form, like, I think that's easier than going to the office, getting a piece of paper and writing down everything. I mean, I do. I think it's easier than trying to remember, what do I need to tell everybody? Like I can't imagine a scenario where it's more difficult to do that. And so, we owe it to ourselves to really try to come up with ways that fit our business.
Right.
So
the one constant is, the one thing we don't have an unlimited supply of is time. And so this is where technology really helps you, because if you can do more in less time, your ROI of your own time invested into transactions starts to go up, and you're giving yourself a raise over time, just by getting that efficiency. And this is, if we use kind of a simple example, let's say 15 years ago, teams or, real estate agents doing 500 transactions were few and far in between. But when technology, call it online marketing and lead gen, became available, what it did is it streamlined, lead generation and those traditional activities, and gave lots of agents scale. So now all of a sudden, you have 250, 300 teams, 400 teams around the country that are doing, 500 to 1,000 transactions, per people. And that wasn't available without the technology, basically. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
And then, another example of this is, hey, agent, how many people did you call? How many people did you email? How many people did you text? How many appointments did you get? Right. The theory is your CRM should be housing that information. The problem is, for many CRMs, if you're not working within it, it's not tracking it. So I literally, if Google has Google Forms, they're free. So I created a Google form, and every day they have to fill out what they did that day. And then I just have it go to a spreadsheet, and then it spits out the data. And the result is I'm tracking really robust analytics, but automatically. And it's all through these free tools. And so, I would say the first, for many people that don't have that significant budget of tech, I would say Google Form, Google Spreadsheets, and Zapier. Right. You'd be amazed if you just start to think through some of your challenges. I mean, there's just so much you can do with just that.
Yeah, we like to do, break down kind of workflows. So if you think in a perfect world, like we should have kind of a checklist, right? If you think about it from a military point of view, or how a SEAL team, conducts an operation, is they're going to say, okay, first, check the gear, or second, do this, third, do that. And I think a lot of us in the industry, what ends up happening is we don't necessarily have that. It's all in memory. It's not something that's written down. So there's not a process. And if there's no process, you can't repeat it. And then if you can't repeat it, then that means you have no system. So, so backing all the way up, like you said, breaking down the problem or what your process is in a perfect world, I think that's the very, very beginning of anyone who's thinking about investing in technology. Is let's understand the problem before we even get started. Instead of just buying stuff to a problem that maybe we don't even know that we have, or something to that effect. So
exactly. Well, and I feel like when we talk about technology, many of the agents listening to us right now are very overwhelmed by technology. And then suddenly when you say to them, what bothers you about your business? How are you failing? What's annoying? Suddenly it's like, okay, so this is my problem. And then you just slowly iterate. Like you don't have to start by fixing it completely. Maybe you just make it a little bit easier.
Right.
I'm an anxious person. And so like, I really want something to tell me if I blew it. Like I want that, you know, like I need it. And so it really does. You don't have to enjoy the technology. You just have to, you know, start with that problem. That was a great insight, Jesse.
Yeah. I like what you're talking about, though, of just kind of using really simple forms that, you know, can be hosted online or whatever, because most people can kind of get through that and they're not overwhelmed by, like, you know, a form, you're just filling out the 2 or 3 steps and you're just kind of working your way down versus maybe logging into a CRM or some other technology solution. What ends up happening is you kind of get overwhelmed by just the buttons and the options. So I think that focus that you kind of create by saying, here's a form, just fill that out, you know, from 1 to whatever that breaks down your workflow. It's a really simple way without, like you said, very much cost, but can have a significant impact on the back end. And it's easy because it creates focus because there's no distraction on just filling out that form.
And that's it. And my agents have actually found that there's an emotional release when they ratify a contract and it's all starts. When they know they've checked every box on that form and they submit, it's like there's a moment like that nagging, did I forget anything, is gone. So it's a big deal. Another not free, but not that expensive that I like, I know you've mentioned to me you like it, is Lucidchart. Lucidchart. Mind mapping and like organizing stuff, I'm not good at. And I used to draw it on paper and it was really ugly. Like it just, and I never really recognized when you're working on a big idea, how just putting, like, Jesse, you're smarter than me. You are. And like,
I don't know about that.
The paper and like map it out. Like for me, having that Lucidchart and like you put a box with a word and then you put 6 more words and you connect those words to the box and suddenly like your mind starts to make connections and like you're progressing. Like I am functioning so far above like what I believe to be my actual skill set at Ylopo, like the stuff that I'm allowed to do and try to create. I didn't go to school for any of that stuff. It's just, you know, so to be able to use these tools to support my day-to-day and as an agent supporting it as well, it's a big deal.
So you kind of touched on, let's say, you know, the transaction management. So the like being in it, in the weeds and kind of solving a lot of those problems and gaining some efficiency. So, you know, at the transaction stage, you kind of have pre-transaction and post-transaction. Can you talk a little bit, you know, on either one of those sides of that, other technology that you might use that, you know, our audience can kind of listen to and maybe get some ideas from in terms of creating efficiency either pre or post-transaction?
So pre-transaction, let's talk about, lead generation, lead follow-up. For me, it's looking for, if you have any listings or if your office has any listings, you've got billboards out in the community. And so then we have to think, all right, what are the ways that people interact with my listing and how can I capture all that? So the first one that I did in a big way was actually with call action 3 years ago. And I remember the conversation like yesterday. Jesse's like, how many listings do you have? I said, 40 or 50. And he was like, about how many calls do you get a month? I said, around 3. And he was like, something's not right. Like something's broken. Well, come to find out, everything had my cell phone number on it. I was really busy and only 3 people a month were leaving me voicemails. But come to find out, I was missing hundreds upon hundreds of inbound calls. And so at the time, like what I did was I basically changed my sign. I got call action, and this isn't a commercial for call action, but it's very relevant to our discussion. People would call my sign and it would automatically go in my CRM. And if we missed the call, there would be a drip campaign. Like I remember I was at a, what's the country music singer? My wife's into country music. I'm not really famous.
Yeah, you're going to stump me.
You can always name too. He's like the one. Anyway,
Chet Holm or Chet Akins or something like that.
it's like from like the 90s. And anyway, I was walking in and like I missed a call. Call action sends a text and says like, sorry, I missed your call. How can I help you? And then they respond. And then another text goes out. And I'm like, wow, this is great. And I went and enjoyed the concert. And so, you know, having where, you know, Craigslist, having a tool that helps me to post effortlessly on Craigslist, to where we're capturing all the online interest, we're bringing everybody in, and our CRM is our source of truth. It is the fundamental focus of my team. So all that activity, all those ads, all flow into our CRM, and we've created action plans or drip campaigns with tasks so that everybody's on the same page and everybody can see what's going on.
And this is the concept of, you know, creating the system to be able to replicate the experience, right? Because when we can replicate something over and over, then that creates efficiency. It creates consistency for the consumer experience. And this, I think, you know, when you think of technology, this is the ultimate goal of technology is, I just want to provide a better experience for the customer at the end of the day, right? Because if I take care of them, I'm going to reap the benefits basically of referral business and everything else that kind of comes along with that. So, you know, your point here in terms of streamlining all of that flow and creating consistency, really what you're saying is that I'm McDonaldizing my business, right? I'm taking a process that seems disparate and creating a workflow that I can drop anybody in there, like McDonald does with their, you know, picture kind of handbooks, basically, if you've ever been an employee there, to learn how to do that step kind of over and over with consistency. And that's what technology can basically help, because you know, at the end of the day, that's what the consumer wants. They want to be able to say that, hey, my transaction with Barry was good. It instills confidence that they're going to refer somebody else. And if you deliver the same experience to the next person, now you have two advocates that are basically, you know, pushing your cause kind of forward. And that's just done by implementing, you know, the systems in place. So
absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, and then, you know, some other pre-transaction stuff, you know, with Ylopo, for example, I took all of my old leads from all my different sources, Call Action, Real Geeks, Zillow, Realtor.com, Craigslist. I imported them all into Ylopo and I ran ads to them, and they're coming back to my website as a result of those ads.
Right.
I've never had a website that kept them coming back to me. Not like this. And so last week I had over 10,000 people shopping for a home on my website. 10,000 people were using my website and not Zillow. Like that's mind blowing to me that I'm able to be relevant to that many people. And it's because it's putting the property in front of them constantly, putting properties. And so
then it really can, you know, if you think of, you know, let's say you're working within a 30-mile radius or something like that of your current office. And if there's 10,000 people in that 30 or 40 or 50-mile radius, you know, this is like a very large percentage of all people who are searching. You know, it kind of translates that they're all ending up on your site. So now you're becoming omnipresent in their life. And if you're omnipresent, that basically means there's less attention for Zillow or Realtor.com or anything else, because they're hyper focused on you. So,
and so what we've started to do, because this remarketing is working so well, what we're doing is we will put signs out at open house and we'll say text open to this number, and they get a link to a Ylopo website. I actually posted about this the other day, to a Ylopo website for retargeting. Then when they come to our open house, we have an open house tool, digitally have them register. Those have been out since 2011. That's not new. What's new is people that are bottom of funnel are coming to my website, are coming to my open house because of Zillow. Zillow normally is what's driving them to my open house. Then they register, and suddenly their listing alerts and their remarketing they're all coming back. And so I had a sales meeting this morning, and I told my agents, I said, look, if you're free Saturday and Sunday, anytime during any week, I said, take one day off. And then the other day, I want you to hold an open house for 2 hours, put it on Zillow, put it in the MLS. We'll run some Facebook ads behind it. And if nobody visits your open house, follow up with your leads for 2 hours. If somebody comes, let them register, and then they're yours. And so, like, pre-transaction, I feel like we're hacking old school telephone calls with call action. We're hacking old school open houses with, visitors and stuff like that. And, Craigslist ads. We're going back to, like, in my mind, like 10 years ago, and it's working.
Right. Well, because so much emphasis has been placed on just, doing purely online marketing, that a lot of those, kind of classic things, people are still going to do what they're going to do. And the more people are all doing the same thing, the more crowded that space becomes. And that's why you see, like, ad costs going up and everything else going up, and people talking about lead quality going down. It's just because that's a really super crowded space. So when you start to kind of spread that back out and really become omnipresent in that person's life, so that they're seeing your yard signs or social proof of success, right? That's different than a website that says, hey, look at us, we're great, and we have we have listings. But when someone is driving around and sees tangible social proof of that signage, that's really powerful. And then all of a sudden, you're showing up in their mail, and you're doing a phone call to them, and you're in their email. All of a sudden, you're all around them, and you become this omnipresent kind of entity that represents real estate for them, that they can relate to because they know that you're local. And that's the ultimate goal of all of the marketing that we should be doing, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. At the end of the day, I just want to have a business that scales. I want plug and play real estate. So, like, I don't want to depend on one or two top producers.
Right.
I want to have a system that anybody can plug into and make money. And I feel like that's, where I'm at right now. And
so you have your lead gen systems kind of top of the funnel, where you're doing some traditional marketing, but doing that traditional marketing smarter, with the signage and capturing those opportunities. You're doing, online marketing to be, top of mind where people are, basically, where they're spending those couple of hours, in front of a screen, called their cell phones. Then you've automated the actual transaction part. So from kind of beginning going into the transaction, you're creating this, amazing experience that's kind of consistent for them. Then thereafter, if we think of pillars of business, the next pillar of business is post-close. I want to work on my sphere of influence and getting referrals. So can you kind of talk to us, what you're doing with technology or technology tools that you are doing to help you scale that generation of referral business and staying top of mind kind of post-close?
Yep, absolutely. So one thing that I'm doing that is helping post-closing, it's so funny. So Hootsuite's been around for a long time. And my team came to me and they wanted some help managing their social media accounts. And so it's just been mind-blowing to me that a major value add for my agents has been me hosting on behalf of all my agents. And so I've linked all of their business pages, and I just do me, right? I just post stuff and have fun, but I post it once, it goes to all of them. And so what we're doing is we're posting to, 15 different agents on my team to their sphere, and then they're sharing it to their personal pages, all sharing, what's occurred, or, hey, here's a picture of so-and-so, they just bought their home, yada, yada. Let's all congratulate them. And then, something that I've been doing post-closing that is, like, I don't like going to pick out gifts for people. Some people do, and some of my agents do a great job with it. I just, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a guy. I don't know. I just don't really enjoy picking out the ribbon, the basket. So I've been actually using EvaBot, which the reason why I do it is I can just text a phone number, like whatever EvaBot's number is, and I can say, send a gift to 757 da 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 da,
Right.
And they send the gift. What they do is they send a link to the person and they say, hey, Barry just sent you a gift. Click here. Now, I always tell the person before the gift comes, I say, look, I love a good robot as much as the next guy. So I've got this new robot. I actually call it a robot that's going to help pick out the perfect gift for you. Let me know what you think. Have some fun with it. So I frame it, right? Like it's not, I think if you use something like that wrong, it's going to push somebody away. But if you gamify it a little bit, it makes it fun. And everybody comes back to me and they're like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. We love it. And, and I even bought the branded boxes and people send me pictures of it all the time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other things we're doing, market reports to our past clients.
Okay.
So every 2 to 4 weeks, they're getting a market report. And then we've written I think a 1.5 year long text and email campaign to past clients. And the idea is to be relevant without being like annoying.
Right.
And so the drip is, it says something like 3 weeks after, hey, I hope the dust is settled. I personally can't stand moving. How's the house? Just then 3 months later, it's, I was in your area, thought of you, just didn't want to bother you, but how's the home?
Right.
Then 6 months later, it's, hey, did you want any documents for tax time? I don't know if anything might be a deduction, but just, thinking about it. And so we basically are we're letting them know that they haven't been forgotten about. That's really the name.
You're staying top of mind and walking them through kind of home ownership, like we've found that, we're sending them a little text reminder saying like, hey, your first mortgage payment might be coming up sometime soon. Don't, keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. Or, when property taxes come due or insurance or, reminding people that like, now that you're all moved in, take a video camera and videotape everything in your house and, save that somewhere safe so that way, if there was ever an insurance claim, like giving them what seems maybe kind of obvious to us as real estate professionals, providing that little bit of value just kind of keeps you top of mind, and it creates a mental association between that customer and you that, you're that real estate source, without, like you said, being pushy or, do you have a referral for me or anything like that, but just subtly kind of just being top of mind. And again, you just have a system that you already know that all of that stuff is going to go out and it's not really taking any of your time to.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first probably 4 years of my career. So back now, let's see. So like 2000 to 2004, I didn't keep track of any of that stuff. And then when the market tanked, I was broke because I was just used to putting a sign in the yard and my phone blowing up because the market was nuts.
Right.
And so now some other things we do leveraging tech, I recorded a Friday campaign. So basically anyone that I add to the Friday campaign gets a voicemail and an email from me. The voicemail says, hey, it's Friday evening. I'm in the office late. And you know what? I just realized I hadn't spoken to you in a while. So I just thought I would let you know how much I appreciate you being a client of mine. If there's anything you ever need real estate related, I'm your guy. Thank you. And I send the email saying like, hey, I just left you a message. Don't want to bother you. Just letting you know how much I appreciate you. Super easy. You can use call action. Like there's so many different ways to do it. And it's just easy. Just one click. Just one click. So.
Yeah. And I think, the important part of this is that it's the consistency in the outbound action, right? Because, Newton law, every action creates a reaction. And a lot of times, if we kind of think about our task or what we do, a lot of times agents will struggle because they didn't create the initial actions to get the reactions, if that makes sense. So with technology, when you scale all of that stuff, if you're doing lots of outbound, you're going to get the reactions, right? Because it's basic kind of concepts. So when you create consistency, that's what all of a sudden makes your business consistent too, all the way down.
When someone sends us a referral, we send out an Evabot link really quick, just effortlessly, like, hey, thank you for the referral. Our robot's got a gift for you. Just, it's just really easy. I used send out cards for a year. I haven't re-upped it, but I uploaded my handwriting. So I uploaded my messy toddler handwriting.
Right.
And I wrote a year's worth of cards and included brownies and gifts and messaging. And I would have people call me and like, Barry, I can't believe you thought of me,
Right.
And that was a 2-hour saga to get that all ready. And then after that, it was done.
Then it's just kind of done forever. And, one example I like to use, there's a book out there called The E-Myth, and I highly recommend that everyone reads that book because it really talks about, being an entrepreneur and creating systems, because this is the difference between, the business owning you or you owning the business. So a lot of what Barry's kind of talking about is exactly this. If you're feeling like a slave to your business, it's because you don't have control of it, and you don't have control because you don't have systems that can be replicated, and you're not leveraging the tools that are available out there to give you scale and consistency in that follow-up. So, kind of going a little bit further down that kind of post-close, are you doing any kind of client events, and have you applied any kind of automation? Like, is there, again, a check form or just a calendar where you're mapping out, all of the events far in advance, or are you using, Eventbrite to get the registrations? Or can you talk a little bit about like maybe some technology uses that you've done in that sense to, again, streamline your kind of post-close transactions?
Yeah. So my struggle with client events is not that I don't think they work. It's that, if I'm in a room of 40 people, 50 people that I'm supposed to be talking to, that's not where I thrive. I would rather have lots, like 3 or 4 people. And so I've kind of pushed it off. But what I decided to do was I rented a movie theater, did the movie ticket. I figured I would, that's 20 minutes of conversation and then a movie. So like, that's a huge,
right.
For us, we call everybody, we invite them, we use Eventbrite, just so that they're notified. And then, I created, an event on Facebook, and Wailopo and I started talking because I had uploaded my entire team sphere into an audience on Facebook. And ran an ad for the event, and the call to action was, are you going or not? And instead of it being like a $4 per click or something like that to register, if they're clicking going or not going, it was like 20 cents, and it increased my attendance by about 30%, and it was not expensive. So driving traffic to the event was actually a really cost-effective way of getting people to show up.
Interesting. I mean, it sounds like you could do almost the same concept for, open houses and stuff like that. Like, hey, are we going to see you? Because that leading in kind of question, this is more of a marketing thing, but but that leading question of like, are we going to see you there is kind of inviting, right? So,
Absolutely.
And the subtle, the getting that first little baby yes of them clicking, it just kind of makes a little mental commitment, because like you said, this anxiety that all of us get of like, is everything done? Like, our natural thing is we want to complete everything, right? If you see a circle and that circle has it's not completed, mentally that creates anxiety. And so if we think of our business as a circle and all these different little steps that take place, if you got a break in that, if looking at the shape gives you anxiety, imagine if that's your business and that's why you have the anxiety. So, really thinking about that entire life cycle from beginning to end, I think is really important. And like you said, slowly applying some kind of tool, like where's that break in my circle of this business, and how can I feel some technology in there that might streamline the entire process for you. So, I think we're going to be getting pretty close. I'm sorry?
You're so poetic.
As you're getting, as we're going to kind of wind down here, some of just, if you want to name some of the tools that you use the most, you mentioned Zapier, any of the Google Office products, or, Google Suites, Google Docs, Google Forms, all of this stuff is free. So it doesn't need to, just because it's technology, doesn't need to be super expensive. You mentioned your websites. Ylopo, of course, doing an amazing job with the retargeting part of it, and just the search experience because it's so clean. But, this could be done with any of the other systems that are out there because, Ylopo is just kind of streamlined that stuff. But the reality is that it doesn't matter what tool, just like, there's other call capture systems beyond, call action or whatever else, basically. But that entire tool set, where should someone focus, like their very initial thing, if they want to kind of start streamlining their business and really using technology versus buying technology?
I think that the first piece of technology they should use is a pen and paper and write down what sucks or what's annoying about their business.
Mm-hmm.
And then do some Google searches around this specific problem. Go into lab codes and search. The search tool of lab code agents of posts, it's like phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And then reverse engineer the problem. What is the problem in your business? What is it called? And what do people, because each industry has their own like colloquialisms and phrases for certain tech blocks. And so find out what the verbiage is and then start to research it. So for example, if transaction management is the problem, well then that's what we call it, right? Transaction management software, e-software, and so I would just say like go low tech to go high tech. Start, and that's the problem. The people that are low tech are afraid to do it because they're overwhelmed and they're afraid to try. And so don't try. Just start with what you know and then slowly build and implement. And man, like the rest I say is history. It's an incredible way to run your business. I could sell my team now. I'm finally out from the limelight, and I can sell what I've built if I wanted to. I don't, but if I wanted to, I could.
Well, that basically means that you have a real business, right? Because if you're the business, you're not sellable. Right? You're employable. Right. But when you can disassociate yourself from the operations of what's happening, either through scale or through technology or whatever it might be, now all of a sudden you have a real business. And that's the whole entire purpose of all of this stuff, is really just creating efficiencies that can be replicated in your business and streamlining. Start off, with the simplest little thing first, because, I like to, there's a really good exercise where if you just spend one day and you just document like the amount of time that you spent doing every single little thing, like how long did I spend sending this one text, this second, this text message, how long did I spend searching the MLS, like how long did I spend looking up for a client's phone number? You start breaking down all those little things. What you start to realize is there's a solution, some kind of tech solution for each one of those. And then when you take the small, what seems insignificant amount of time, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, but you start to aggregate all of that stuff throughout the day, you realize, wow, there's an hour or two there that I could free up if I just, focus on trying to solve that problem and using some technology to streamline that. And that's where the big wins come. And that's why you've been able to, like you said, kind of disassociate yourself from the business directly. And now you're just kind of the orchestra, the orchestra leader. So, all right. Well, again, want to say thanks for everyone. Doesn't look any questions. I'm not seeing any questions on here. So I think
some in the Facebook group, they were asking.
Oh, okay.
Report. I used to use Market Snapshot.
Okay.
But I don't anymore. Just because
Altos, I think, or no?
Yeah. So Altos is if you're sending a report on the market, Altos by far and away is the most advanced data-centric reporting, and in fact, it's if you're using Ylopo's marketing tool, it's using Altos, and so. Just a great opportunity depending on what, where you land on website providers. But that's the product we're using. People really like it, and it works well.
Awesome. All right. So aside from that, doesn't look like too many other questions. So maybe what we'll do is we'll post a couple links in here in terms of like Zapier and some of the other basic tools that are out there. But, you know, I'll kind of give my closing statement, which is just think of it like going to the gym. If you want a specific outcome, you do need to put a little bit of work and effort into this, because the more that you do that work up front, just like going to the gym, it'll be easier and easier and easier. So if you start off and you can only do, you know, 3 push-ups, if you keep at it, eventually, you know, you're going to be able to do 30 push-ups and eventually 300 push-ups in the same amount of time or in a less amount of time. So if you are thinking about technology, really spend the time to, you know, learn it and really use the tools. Basically go deep on one thing, master it before you start to layer on other things on top of that. Barry, you want to close this out?
Yeah, I really just want to summarize by asking what beard conditioner you use, because you're no
beard conditioner for me.
Really? Wow. I like, we can just end it right now. Really, guys, just stop being a victim to the problems in your life and find ways of fixing it. Start with a pen and paper if that's where you're most comfortable, and then do one problem at a time. Just focus on one thing, and every day or once a week, focus on one problem in your business and find ways to make it a little bit easier.
100%. Well, thanks for that, Barry. Always a pleasure talking to you. Always a pleasure nerding out with you. So guys, thank you very much. If you guys need anything, post some questions in the group. We'll try and answer it a little bit later on. Thanks to Lab Coats for everything, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.